Can poor people get married? By the way, my wife is a beautiful secretary. I ran into a classmate who used to look down on me during our school days. Out of nowhere, he threw that line at me. This classmate, who works at a major brokerage firm, couldn't stop bragging about himself. Then, the beautiful secretary who was late arrived and shouted when she saw me, "Mr. Smith." After that, my classmate regretted his words and begged for a second chance. My name is David. I just turned 32 this year. Back in school, I was considered a terrible student, and the teachers told me further education would be difficult. Moreover, my family's business went bankrupt, and we suddenly found ourselves living in poverty. The company went bankrupt when I was grade 12. While I was casually thinking about my future, my parents revealed that the company was gone. "We're sorry, but we might put you through some tough times. If you get a job, could you contribute a bit to the household?" My father said he wanted to respect my decision, whether it was to go to college or to work. However, he also mentioned they couldn't support either choice financially and that I'd need to contribute if I worked. I didn't have a specific college in mind, and I wasn't a good student anyway. So, I decided to work to help my parents out a bit. But at my school, most students went on to higher education, and those who didn't were often looked down upon. Among them, the one who particularly looked down on me was my classmate, Tom. Tom's father was an executive at a bank, making Tom one of the wealthier students. Sometimes, he'd flaunt brand name items that seemed too early for a high schooler and brag about going to a prestigious university. "You're not going to college, huh? And your family's business went bankrupt? Looks like you're headed straight for poverty." After school, while I was waiting for a friend from another class, Tom suddenly approached me. We had barely spoken before, but once he learned I was going straight to work, he started making condescending remarks. "I always plan to get a job, and I don't really care. Besides, having my family together is more important to me than money. You're just pretending not to care, aren't you? You'll have a hard time in the future being poor. No girl would choose someone like you." To be honest, I had never been confessed to by a girl until then. I had never fallen for anyone either, and I wasn't interested in dating. But Tom's words did make me a bit anxious about my future. Still, I didn't think it was his place to say that, and I believed that if I stayed earnest, someone would eventually notice. Years passed, and now I'm 32. Just as Tom predicted, I hadn't been in any romantic relationships since then, focusing solely on my work. I had forgotten Tom's disdain, but looking through an old album brought those memories back. It annoyed me that things had turned out the way Tom had said. But my job is so busy now that I can't afford to dwell on it. Many of my classmates have climbed the ranks and are likely quite busy themselves. However, I'm confident I'm even busier than they are. One busy day, I found myself drawn to a newly opened cafe near the station. Normally, I would walk right past it, but something about this cafe caught my attention. I've always loved coffee and have several kinds of beans stocked at home. And above all, the exterior of this cafe was really nice. It had a calm atmosphere, and you could see the staff's smiles from outside. I ordered the recommended coffee and cake and took a seat by the window. The one-person seats were often at the counter by the window, which I liked. Some people might dislike being visible from outside, but I enjoyed watching passers-by and the changing sky. After getting my coffee and cake, I put on my headphones and started listening to music. I don't usually get to relax like this, so I felt great today. I thought it would be a good day. That's what I believed. But an unpleasant event crept up silently. Around the time I finished half my cake, I felt a gaze staring at me through the window in front of me. When I looked up, there stood Tom with a broad smile. Even though it had been over 10 years since high school graduation, I still remembered Tom's face, and he looked the same. Tom, delighted to see me, walked straight into the cafe. Is he really going to talk to me? As I wondered, Tom headed directly toward me. "David. Long time no see. I can't believe we're meeting here. It's been a while. What's up with you all of a sudden?" Well, I saw an old classmate, so of course, I had to say hi. Tom continued, as if he had no memory of the past. But all he did was boast about himself, which didn't interest me at all. "Actually, I work at a major brokerage firm and I'm about to get promoted." "Good for you. What's with that reaction? You're really jealous, aren't you? You can show some emotion, you know. Since my pleasant time was ruined, I just went along with the conversation half-heartedly. However, to Tom, it seemed like I was holding back my jealousy. I got married 6 months ago, too. Don't you think I'm really winning at life? Well, I guess so. You've never really stood out, have you? You're still not married, right? Tom seized the chance to belittle me. He claimed he approached me because he saw an old classmate, but I knew better. Tom just wanted someone to brag to. Even though he hadn't ordered anything, he stayed, which was inconvenient for the cafe. So I suggested he should either order something or leave. If you're going to stay, you should order something. Otherwise, you should probably leave. It's fine to hang out for a bit. No one said anything. Are you jealous of my marriage? Is that why you want me to leave? No, that's not it. When I tried to deny it, Tom twisted my words. So, I decided not to deny or affirm anything further. That's what I resolved to do. Yet, Tom didn't seem to run out of things to talk about, continuing next to me while I was growing exasperated. Well, I guess losers like you can't get married. By the way, my wife is a beautiful secretary. Where did you meet her? I met her at a mixer. Initially, I thought she'd just be a backup, but she turned out to be amazing, so I married her. Since Tom showed no signs of stopping, I decided to let him talk as much as he wanted and asked him some questions. Without any shame, Tom began his story loudly. He said he met his current wife at a mixer a friend had invited him to. She was very beautiful and popular, so he was determined to win her over and pursued her aggressively. Though they started dating, Tom had another girlfriend at the time. So his current wife was initially a backup, but after breaking up with the other woman, he married her. I was in my 30s and thought it was time to settle down. But doesn't that mean you were two-timing? Isn't that disrespectful to both your wife and your ex? I pointed out. Well, if they found out, they'd probably break up with me. So as long as they don't know, it's fine. Tom seemed to think nothing of betraying people, even acting as if dating multiple women was a badge of honor. I'd met people like this before, but Tom was on another level. You probably can't relate since you don't get women. Yeah, I'm really glad I don't live in that world. What? What do you mean by that? Unable to tolerate his attitude of treating people poorly, my anger surfaced. I had been holding back my emotions, but this was too much. Realizing I was angry, Tom suddenly changed his demeanor. Losers like you shouldn't be in a cafe. Wearing a suit to a cafe? That's such a loser move. I'm wearing a suit because I have work. Then tell me what kind of job you have. Bet you're either unemployed or have a bottom-tier job. I did have work later, and I just stopped by the cafe in between. So, there was nothing wrong with wearing a suit, and it shouldn't be something to look down on. But Tom wanted to nitpick and mock anything he could about me. I glanced at my watch and realized I needed to get to work soon. I should get going. Wait, are you running away? I have work to get to. I can tell you're lying. You're just embarrassed and trying to escape. Ignoring Tom, I left the cafe. Tom, left behind, hurriedly chased after me, trying to stop me. No need to rush off. It's not like you have anything better to do. He threw his arm around me. He leaned on me with his weight, making it difficult for me to move forward. Continuing to deal with him would be a waste of time and energy, and I'd probably end up being used. Just as I was trying to shake him off, a woman's voice called out from behind. Mr. Smith. Tom and I turned around, surprised. There stood a beautiful woman. Mr. Smith? What are you talking about? Mr. Smith. Do you two know each other? Why do you call him Mr. Smith? Ha? Tom looked confused, with question marks practically floating above his head. Honestly, I was also a bit confused by the situation. This woman was Emily White, my company's secretary. Tom White, could it be? You two are married? Yes, what's your relationship with each other? David and I were in the same class during grade 12. I was stunned to find out that the secretary I hired was married to Tom. It was too shocking. Emily is widely recognized as a beautiful and highly capable secretary. I had never heard any frivolous rumors about her, and she never let her private life interfere with her work. Whenever I made a mistake, she was quick to lend a hand and always did an excellent job. Wait a minute. Are you really the CEO? Hey, you've been too rude to him. He's a very impressive person. To be honest, I'm the CEO of an IT company. After graduating high school, I started working right away. Of course, it was to support my family. Starting out was tough. I made a lot of mistakes and got scolded frequently. But as I worked, I began to understand the ropes and had more free time. During that time, I started to think. Right now, I might feel more mature because I started working earlier than my classmates, but what will happen when they graduate from college? I'd be considered inferior. While I didn't usually care much about others' opinions, Tom's face came to mind. Recalling the days when Tom looked down on me, I felt a strong urge to prove him wrong. Even though I had no plans to see him again and might never see him again in my life. Tom's words stuck with me and ignited my competitive spirit. From then on, I began to study intensely, aiming to match the academic level of my classmates through self-study. There, I discovered the world of IT. I wasn't particularly bright, so I thought I couldn't handle anything too complex. But there are many different fields in IT, and more importantly, it fascinated me. From then on, I became obsessed with studying IT. After years of living like that, I started to think about creating my own company. At first, I thought it would be enough just to get a job at some IT firm. But since my father had run a company, I figured I could get some advice on management. By that time, I had also started to gain a strange confidence in myself. I felt like I could do anything, and even if I failed, it would be a valuable experience. So, I took the plunge and started my own company. Of course, it didn't go smoothly at first. I couldn't afford to hire employees, and I couldn't even get any work. Still, I ran the company while working part-time jobs and somehow made it to where I am now. There's no way this guy's a CEO. You're lying, aren't you? Why would I lie about that? Not wanting to believe I was a CEO, Tom started arguing with Emily. I thought it was ridiculous for them to fight because of me, so I tried to calm things down. It's true that I'm the CEO, but Emily hasn't done anything wrong. The moment I took her side, Tom's demeanor changed, and he became furious. He then got up close to me. A guy like you being Emily's boss? Give me a break. You probably hired her just because she's beautiful. Of course not. Tom insinuated that I had ulterior motives in hiring Emily, so I couldn't help but raise my voice in denial. Sure, Emily is undeniably beautiful. But I never mix my personal life with work, knowing it only leads to trouble. I've never once looked at her that way. However, Tom either lacked confidence or was jealous of me, and he kept pushing his narrative. I hire people based on their abilities. You're a liar. You probably only hire beautiful women. No one would bother with someone like you otherwise. Even after learning I was a CEO, he continued with his snide remarks. I had work to get to soon, yet Tom remained as self-centered as ever. That's enough. I'm leaving. Hey, are you running away? Just stop it. This is embarrassing. I'll go with Mr. Smith, and we can talk later. Emily and I left Tom behind and got into a taxi. She kept apologizing profusely, but it was clearly Tom's fault. Still, I couldn't understand why she had chosen to marry someone like him. On the way to my appointment, I couldn't help but ask why she married Tom. Why did you marry him? When we started dating, he was wonderful. But after we got married, he became increasingly tyrannical. Apparently, Tom had been treating her badly as well. She explained that before and early in their relationship, Tom was considerate and charming, which led her to marry him. Before marriage, he took her to various places and occasionally gave her bouquets, making him seem very attractive. But recently, he had been coming home late and going out drinking several nights a week. At first, she suspected he might be cheating, but found no evidence of it. When she asked him about it, he got angry, confronting her trust in him. True, there wasn't enough to conclude he was cheating, and it could have been her imagination. But given what Tom had said earlier about his relationships, I couldn't help but suspect he might be cheating. I was debating whether to share my suspicions with her. Do you think I should get a divorce? Would you divorce him if he's cheating on you? Absolutely. I can't stay with someone I can't trust. Hearing this, I decided to tell her what I had heard earlier. At first, she looked incredulous, but eventually, she believed me. This was probably because I had always treated people with sincerity. On the other hand, Tom's actions had led him to lose trust. After listening to my story, she spoke with determination. I've decided. I'm going to divorce him. Thank you for telling me. Even though I had a meeting with a client soon, I wondered if it was okay to discuss this now, but Emily turned out to be stronger than I expected. She showed a sad face for only a moment before quickly regaining her composure. Or perhaps she was just pretending to be fine. Even so, she was incredibly strong. After that, I didn't see Tom again, nor did I hear from Emily about him. A month later, our company had a drinking party. We prioritize our employees' personal lives, so we rarely have these gatherings. However, during the holiday season, we hold an end-of-year party and invite those who want to participate. Usually, Emily wouldn't join, but this time she did, which struck me as odd. Sure enough, Emily revealed she was now separated from Tom. I really want to get divorced quickly, but he's not agreeing to it at all. He seemed pretty possessive, so it might be tough. If it gets too hard, you might want to consider hiring a lawyer. I'm thinking about that, but there's something that's been bothering me. Emily then started telling me something unexpected. She had moved out of the house they shared and was now living in an apartment near the office. Recently, however, something strange had been happening. Although she rarely got approached by people on the street before, lately, men had been approaching her and asking for her contact information frequently. It happened on her way home from work, at bars she visited alone, and in various other places. It felt sudden and strange to Emily. I suspect they might be hired to make us break up. Hired to make you break up? Yes, like a honey trap. It seems there are agencies that specialize in breaking up couples by using honey traps. They approach under the guise of coincidence, so many people don't notice. Emily thought Tom might be trying to use this method to create grounds for a divorce by accusing her of cheating. While I was intrigued by this, it must have been a huge source of anxiety for Emily. I think it's because I told him I couldn't stay with someone who cheats, and I demanded a divorce. So he doesn't want to be the bad guy in the divorce. Indeed, what Emily said made sense, and a quick search online showed it was a possible scenario. But if Tom was doing this, it needed to be stopped immediately. What do you want to do, Emily? I'm not sure, but I do want a divorce. Don't you want to make him regret it? Before I realized it, I had blurted out those words. Perhaps I wanted to help Emily, and also to vent my own anger. Emily seemed to feel the same way, nodding quietly in agreement. Then, Emily and I devised a plan. First, she would be careful not to fall for any traps set by the breakup agent Tom hired. She would act as a difficult target, forcing him to keep hiring the breakup agent. If Emily didn't cheat, Tom would continue using the honey trap. However, hiring a breakup agent is expensive, and Tom would have to keep spending money. We concluded that the best way to make Tom suffer would be to put him in financial trouble. Emily had the tougher role, but she seemed eager to go along with the plan. In fact, she seemed more excited about the strategy than I was, which was a bit reassuring. For a while, Emily remained vigilant, and we successfully caused financial strain for Tom. Eventually, the money ran out, and the honey trap attempts stopped. Mr. Smith, it worked. Thank you. Not at all, you did all the hard work, Emily. Now I can get a divorce with peace of mind. Did you find any evidence of him cheating? The truth is, while we executed the plan, we were also gathering evidence of Tom's infidelity. Emily's role was to buy time for this purpose. Though it was mainly about hiring a private investigator, it was a tedious task. Even when we suspected his infidelity, catching the evidence was tough. However, persistence paid off, and we managed to capture proof in photos. We got the evidence. I've also consulted a lawyer, and we can proceed with the divorce with Tom at fault. Wow, you've already progressed that far? That's reassuring. Emily was indeed efficient. She managed all of this while still performing her regular work duties. After that, Emily successfully divorced Tom and received a lump sum. It was paid once, but Tom had no savings at the time. He must have borrowed money from his parents or friends. Borrowing such a large amount could sever those relationships. Tom didn't seem to understand that. Later, I heard through the grapevine that although Tom borrowed money to pay the lump sum, he hadn't repaid any of it. Apparently, he borrowed money from our classmates, but he hasn't returned a single cent. He had borrowed from several classmates, causing significant issues among them. Working at a brokerage firm, he should have been earning a decent salary. With a frugal lifestyle, he could have repaid the debt quickly. But it seemed Tom had a gambling problem. After Emily left, Tom frequently gambled. This bad habit persisted, leading to the inevitable divorce from Emily. Hearing this, I decided to confront Tom. Knowing his work schedule from Emily, it was easy to find him. "Tom, can we talk?" "What do you want?" "Here to laugh at me?" "No, but it seems you owe everyone money." "They want it back." Tom looked embarrassed. "Did you come just to say that?" "Either way, it's my business. If you repay the money, there might be a chance for reconciliation with Emily." "What? With Emily? Is that true?" Of course, the chance was slim. I hadn't explicitly promised it. But Emily had said it was okay to use her name. She believed that if Tom thought reconciliation was possible, he would repay everyone. Emily was right. Mentioning her name immediately changed Tom's demeanor. Would Emily really come back? Is she waiting for me? Why don't you find out for yourself? But she said she won't see you until you repay your debts. With that, I left Tom. Sometime later, Tom managed to repay his debts. Hearing that he had paid back our classmates, Emily and I felt relieved. As soon as he finished repaying the money, Tom contacted Emily. He begged to meet Emily, but she turned him down. Of course, Tom asked why, but she explained that she had thought it through and made her decision. Did Tom accept that? Of course not. He cursed me out. That sounds like him. But I'm really glad you helped me, Mr. Smith. Emily said, gripping my hand tightly. Please don't call me Mr. Smith in private. Right. David. The truth is, Emily and I are dating. As we talked about Tom, we hit it off. I never imagined I would date someone from my own company. But with Emily, I felt comfortable and energized. Emily felt the same, and we gradually became attracted to each other. At first, we only talked about Tom, but over time, our conversation shifted to our personal lives, hobbies, and future goals. I was surprised to learn that we had the same aspirations. I never thought there would be someone so similar to me. Having worked with Emily for years, I knew how wonderful she was. Before I knew it, I had confessed my feelings to her. Emily accepted my confession, and we started dating. However, I knew it was only a matter of time before Tom finished repaying his debts and tried to come back to Emily. So, I decided to move with Emily to a new place. While at work, our colleagues and the building security would keep an eye out for her. At home, she would have me, and she could feel safe. We also had classmates who were lawyers and police officers, so we had people to turn to if needed. I'm so glad you're here to protect me. I look forward to our future together. I'm sorry for what we did to your ex-husband. It feels like we've really dragged him down. What are you talking about? If it weren't for all that, I wouldn't have met you, David. Emily is an amazing woman, more than I deserve. I had never been in a relationship before and honestly didn't think I could love someone. But Emily broke me out of my shell and brought me into the world. I can't imagine marrying anyone but Emily. We cook together when we get home and have a drink on the night before a day off. On sleepless nights, we take walks and buy ice cream from the convenience store. These small, everyday moments are very special to me. I've come to realize that the most important things are the ones we often take for granted. So, a month after we moved, I proposed to Emily. We hadn't been dating long, and we had only been living together for a month. But I knew that if I let her go, I would never marry anyone else. Will you marry me? Are you sure you want me? Emily, you're the only one for me. Thank you, she said, tears quietly streaming down her face. A year later, we had a small wedding. Emily didn't want a big ceremony, so I respected her wishes. After the intimate ceremony, we went on a trip overseas. My work had settled down, and our employees were doing great. The company wouldn't fall apart if I was away for a bit. In fact, while we were on our trip, I didn't receive a single call from the office. I was prepared for some trouble, but everything went smoothly, much to my surprise. Our days continued as usual, and the company gradually grew. We were still a few years old as a company, so we had a long way to go compared to large corporations. But someday, I hope we'll be as well known as the big companies. At first, I started the company to prove Tom wrong. But now, I'm grateful for his words. Without them, I might have stayed stagnant. Although those days of Tom's taunts weren't pleasant, they were part of my life experience. And there's one more significant change since then. Emily is expecting a baby. A while ago, she wasn't feeling well, and a visit to the doctor confirmed she was 3 months pregnant. We had always wanted children but didn't expect it to happen now, so we were both surprised. Though this is a critical time for my career, I need to prioritize her health. Once the baby is born, I plan to cut back on work even more. Parenting is a shared responsibility, and mutual support is crucial. I've heard of many men who prioritize work, but so be it. Still, it's impossible for me to neglect my partner. Emily is risking her life to bring our child into the world, and it's my duty to support her. The baby is due in a few months, and I can't wait. On days when Emily feels well, we choose clothes and think about names. I wonder what our child will be like. Let's see, maybe a beautiful girl like you. Or a smart boy like you. We enjoy these conversations, eagerly awaiting our child's birth. Companies like the one I work for are out of your league. At our middle school reunion with 50 classmates, John looked down on me. John has always treated me as a rival since we were kids, and it seems that hasn't changed even now that we're both over 50. Listening to his misguided comments makes me embarrassed for him. It looks like it's time to clear up some misunderstandings. So, which branch office is it? Ha! John, who had been mocking me, was suddenly stunned and started trembling when he realized who I was. My name is Alex Smith. I'm a 52-year-old professional. I've loved reading books since I was young, especially biographies of great people from around the world. I want to contribute to society. Somehow, that became my mindset, and I always tried to act on my own initiative before being told what to do. Maybe because of that, by the time I was in middle school, I was often relied upon as a representative. Becoming the captain of clubs and being recommended for class president. However, I always made sure not to act selfishly or boss people around. Inspired by historical figures, I worked with others to move in agreeable directions. This approach was well received, and I had an enjoyable middle school life. I continued to live happily through high school, college, and into my career, but looking back now, middle school was the most fulfilling and enjoyable period of my life. It was just last month that I received a postcard inviting me to a reunion of my middle school classmates. At our age, many have moved away from our hometown. I couldn't even remember the last time I saw my middle school friends. Excited to see my old classmates, I promptly checked yes on my RSVP and mailed it back. On the day of the reunion, I headed to the venue, unable to contain my excitement. The reunion was held at an upscale hotel, and I could already see a few people gathered at the entrance. Hey, is that you, Alex? Long time no see. As soon as I arrived, classmates started greeting me. I thought I had arrived early, but it seemed most people were already there. Everyone must have been as excited as I was. Unlike our teenage selves, we're all now adults in our 50s. While everyone had aged, there were still traces of our childhood selves, and I couldn't help but smile with nostalgia. As I chatted with a nearby classmate about our current lives, a loud, crude laugh interrupted us. I turned to see a man in flashy attire. He wore a suit made of expensive-looking fabric and flaunted a shiny watch from his cuff, confidently surveying the room with his arms crossed. It took me a moment to recognize him, but his arrogant demeanor gave him away. Arriving late was John. He was my classmate who always picked fights with me. John seemed to dislike me for some reason, maybe because we were both smart. Unlike me, who had many friends, John had a harsh personality and attacked anyone he didn't like. That's why classmates tended to keep their distance from him. Just a moment ago, we were having a pleasant conversation, but now we exchanged uneasy glances. A few classmates even got up to avoid John. But John, seeing me, approached with a smirk. "Long time no see, Alex. You're looking pretty shabby." "John, I didn't recognize you at first." "You're wearing a sharp suit. It suits you well." John seemed pleased by my genuine compliment. He crossed his arms again, looking me up and down with a condescending gaze. "You haven't changed much since middle school. You're at an age where you should pay more attention to your appearance." He continued to look down on me, adding, "Given your cheap clothes, you must have led a life with little success. You probably haven't had many meals in nice hotels like this. Eat up while you can." He didn't seem to notice the irritated looks he was getting from everyone around him. John kept rambling spitefully, ignoring the discomfort he was causing. I could only smile wryly, finding it childish to retort. Eventually, John shifted the conversation to jobs. "So, what do you all do for work? Judging by your shabby appearances, it can't be much." Without waiting for answers, John started making assumptions about each classmate he pointed to. "You used to read car magazines all the time, so you must work at an auto repair shop. And your family had a farm, right? I bet you couldn't get a job and ended up working there." One by one, he pointed and made presumptuous judgments. Naturally, the atmosphere grew tense, and no one responded to him. Whether he was oblivious to the critical atmosphere or choosing to ignore it, John just laughed loudly. "I bet most of you are busy growing vegetables or taking care of animals. I'm not like you. With my brains and intelligence, I work at a solid company." Even though no one had asked, John proudly pulled out his business card. The card, handed over with an assertive gesture, bore the name of a large local company, Capital Corporation, along with the title of senior manager. This company is involved in a wide range of activities, from developing precision equipment for industries and research institutions to manufacturing and sales. Seeing the unexpected company name, I was momentarily stunned. John, noticing my reaction, grinned even wider. He placed his hands on my shoulders, unable to hide his glee. "Surprised? This is reality. After studying hard and graduating from Harvard, I became a manager at Capital Corporation." "Where did you end up? How much did you study after middle school?" No matter what university you graduated from or what job you have, there's no hierarchy among people. Different jobs support each other, making society work. My tone grew harsh. It wasn't just that he insulted me, his disdain for our classmates and his scorn for farming and livestock industries was intolerable. I must have surprised him with my harsh tone. John stared at me, his expression quickly turning sour. "Oomph. If you're that defensive, you must be doing manual labor. You were always pampered, but it seems you didn't work hard after middle school." He turned his face away as if he'd seen something unpleasant, shaking his head theatrically. Talking to someone on a different intellectual level is exhausting. I usually talk with my Harvard peers, and the conversations are completely different. Goodbye. Enjoy wallowing with your peers at the bottom. With that, John moved to a table where some women were chatting. It was unfortunate that the atmosphere had soured on our reunion. I apologized to my classmates, but their criticism was focused on John. Man, he was always a jerk, but he's even worse now as an adult. Indeed, John had always boasted and ignored the atmosphere. Back then, I thought it was childish pride, but it seems it was part of his character. If he hasn't changed by this age, he's unlikely to change in the future. Sighing, I watched John force his way into the women's group. After John left, I decided to enjoy the conversation with my classmates. Eventually, the late arrivals trickled in, and with almost all 50 of us present, the reunion formally began. As the former class president, I led the toast, and we started our meal. At first, the long years apart made conversations awkward, but once the drinks flowed, the atmosphere lightened, and everyone started having fun. In middle school, it was impossible to talk to girls alone without feeling embarrassed. But now, as adults, we communicated smoothly and respectfully. I enjoyed talking to several classmates about what we used to think back then and memorable episodes. We shared thoughts and feelings we had kept to ourselves, such as what we secretly thought or how we wished we had talked more. Revealing these feelings after 37 years was incredibly enjoyable. Just then, a buzz came from the entrance. I turned to see the last classmate arriving, and a few people rushed over to greet her. Emily. It is you, Emily. Oh my, how nostalgic. Emily, who had always been kind and cheerful to everyone, was the class darling and very popular back in middle school. With her gentle demeanor and pure beauty, everyone admired her. Boys and girls alike adored her, so the group surrounding her now was evenly split between men and women. After a while, Emily came over to the table where I was sitting. Thanks for being here today. Same to you. It's great to see everyone again. Emily's modest attire highlighted her natural charm even more. She looked remarkably youthful for someone in her 50s, with a calm demeanor that made her even more captivating. Back in middle school, I too had admired her, and she was actually my first love. Seeing her at the reunion stirred up nostalgic feelings. I got held up at work and ended up being a bit late. That's all right. We've just started, so stay and enjoy yourself. As we exchanged light conversation, I noticed her beautiful hand. On her left ring finger, there was no ring. Surprised, I felt my heart race, unsure of how to broach the topic. Emily followed my gaze and then widened her eyes in realization. Oh, this is. Just then, a familiar voice interrupted from behind. There you are, Emily. Talking to Alex is a waste of time. It was John, grinning as he inserted himself between us. Emily looked confused, but John continued talking to her, ignoring her discomfort. You've talked enough with Alex. Now come over to my table and chat with me. I sighed, annoyed that John had returned. Twisting his body to block Emily's view, John scowled at me, signaling me to leave. Talking with Emily is enjoyable, but it's true that we've spent more than enough time together here. Besides, Emily probably wants to catch up with our other classmates too. With that in mind, I glanced at Emily. She looked troubled, her brows furrowed, as she glanced between John and the table where he had beckoned her, comparing him with the other classmates seated there. As I pondered what to do, John elbowed me. Eat up while you can, Alex. You must be living a poor life, always eating bad food. With that, John had a staff member bring a chair and forcibly sat between Emily and me. I'd been in management for years. Smart people like me rise quickly. It's different from those working in farming or construction. John boasted about his capabilities. Emily, not wanting to disrupt the atmosphere, politely nodded, though she didn't seem particularly interested. Still, John kept talking, oblivious to her lack of interest. I grew tired of his constant boasting and childish way of communicating, and found myself wondering when to step in and help her. Noticing the awkwardness at our table, a few classmates gathered from other tables. But John, ignoring them, continued addressing Emily exclusively. By the way, I haven't mentioned the company I work for. You must know it, it's a major firm. Pausing for a moment, John theatrically cleared his throat. Then, casting a proud glance my way, he announced the company name with a confident tone. The nationwide company, Capital Corporation. After middle school, I went to a top high school, graduated from Harvard, and became a manager at this big company. Hearing such an impressive background, a few classmates listening inside in surprise. Feeling thoroughly pleased with himself, John began to boast even more. He went on about how he led a top-tier lifestyle and was an exceptional person worthy of his high-ranking position at a large company. In contrast, he exaggerated how the classmates gathered today had fallen into less successful lives, making the atmosphere increasingly uncomfortable. But just as his voice grew louder and the tension reached a breaking point, John suddenly stopped. Turning to me, he flashed a provocative smile. Well, isn't it surprising how far I've come since our school days? A big company like mine is out of your league. With all 50 classmates listening, I felt a wave of nostalgia rather than anger. In middle school, John always tried to compete with me in everything, from math quizzes to 55-yard sprints. I was never interested in winning or losing, viewing school grades merely as indicators of my learning progress. I never rose to John's provocations, but my classmates often defended me. Even now, just as in the past, the classmates around John looked annoyed and frustrated. There he goes again, acting superior. Alex didn't do anything to deserve this. Some classmates openly confronted John, while others whispered among themselves. He was bragging about his job to me too. Why is he monopolizing Emily? Faced with the collective grumbling, John seemed genuinely angered. But it was just like him to direct his anger towards me. People's worth is measured by their salary. You might have been popular in middle school, but things change as adults. Listening to John's misguided comments was almost embarrassing. It seemed time to clear up the misunderstandings. I gestured for John to stop and spoke, holding back laughter. So, which branch office do you work at? Ha! Clearly, he hadn't expected that. John stared back at me blankly, his mouth slightly open. The other classmates, with whom I had been catching up before John arrived, seemed to understand the situation and began to chuckle quietly. John, however, seemed confused by their reaction. After a moment, he turned red with anger. Which branch doesn't matter. What's important is the company. You'll never set foot in a big company like mine. His declaration elicited louder laughter from the classmates. They couldn't hold back anymore, finding his obliviousness amusing. What's so funny? Are you jealous of my job? Or do you think the main office is superior to a branch office? Let's stop this, please. While everyone else laughed, Emily spoke soothingly, trying to calm the situation. It was meant to keep things from getting more chaotic, but it seemed John misunderstood again. Only Emily understands me. Thank you for defending me. They are ridiculous for laughing at my competence. He gazed at Emily with gratitude, but she wasn't speaking to him. Emily had called out to me, who was sitting next to John. Hey, Alex. Isn't it time you told him the truth? You're right, Emily. John's eyes darted around, clearly confused by our conversation. Seeing that he wasn't catching on, I began explaining patiently. I don't think the headquarters is more important. I always appreciate the hard work of branch employees. Work is about mutual support. Don't talk like you're some company representative. Don't be so condescending. John spat his words angrily, causing more laughter. I appreciate the effort of branch employees. But someone with your mindset as a manager is a problem. I need to inform the branch about this. What? What do you mean? Inform the branch? What are you talking about? Even now, he failed to understand. Seeing him so flustered, I felt a bit sorry but also amused. Having someone with your attitude is damaging to the company's image. You could cause the company losses. Image? You're mocking me. How can someone like you criticize my company? Determined not to lose, he glared at me and retorted. The classmates around us watched with amusement, some even egging John on with calls of "Go on, John. Keep it up." But I noticed Emily looking at John with pity, which made me feel sorry for him too. I hadn't expected the reunion to be this lively, but it was time to reveal the truth. Listen, John, I'm the CEO of the company you work for. What? What kind of nonsense are you talking about? It's a massive company with branches nationwide. Stop dreaming and wake up. Even though I had explained it clearly, he couldn't comprehend it. Just as I was about to give up, thinking that no amount of explanation would help, Emily started speaking to him. She took out her phone, pulled up something on the screen, and showed it to him. Look at the company's website. See? If you're so proud of your company, you should recognize the CEO's face and name. Her phone clearly displayed my photo and the name Alex Smith. John finally realized I was telling the truth. His face turned pale, and he started trembling all over. No way. I had no idea. Recalling the awful things he'd said to me. He suddenly began to grovel, laughing nervously and addressing me in a fawning tone. I might have gone a bit too far, but you'll forgive me, right? We were good friends, after all. It's not about forgiveness. It's about the attitude of looking down on others. Changing your behavior just because I'm the CEO is precisely the problem. Even after that explanation, he continued to smirk and repeated a half-hearted sorry. He didn't seem to understand at all, and I sighed deeply. I'll report what I saw and heard today to the branch. If you've been working diligently, there shouldn't be any issues. I always work hard. You don't need to worry, Mr. Smith. John straightened up and addressed me formally. His blatant change in demeanor made it clear he hadn't understood the point. It's problematic to judge people by their jobs or switch to formal language just because someone is a CEO. Since he couldn't grasp this, I had nothing more to say to him. Not wanting to let the awkward atmosphere linger and disturb others, I stood up. Emily started to follow me, but John suddenly shouted, "Are you trying to impress Emily by flaunting your CEO status?" I paused, puzzled by his accusation. But then John turned his head and started speaking to Emily. Emily, approaching Alex just because he's a CEO is wrong. It's not about status or money, it's about what's inside. The same John who had boasted about his title and income now contradicted himself. Everyone present was baffled by what had gotten into this man, but Emily, who was addressed directly, responded seriously. "I'm not talking to Alex because he's a CEO. We're at a reunion, and I want to chat with all my classmates." Classmates around us voiced their agreement with her. However, John shook his head vigorously, as if to dismiss the voices around him, and glared fiercely at her hand. Then, noticing her bare left ring finger, he grinned smugly. "Then you'll talk to me too, right? Emily, you're not married, are you? If status and income don't matter, date me." Though John was single, his approach to her was inappropriate. As I was gauging the right moment to step in, Emily, to my surprise, firmly rejected his words. "I could never date someone like you. Someone who judges people by their job or income isn't someone I could be happy with." Her clear refusal almost made me laugh. But even after being firmly told no, he still wouldn't back down. "If you really don't judge people by their job or income, you should be fine with me. If you choose Alex, it means you care about status and money. I have a clear reason. In case you've misunderstood, Alex is my husband." John's mouth fell open, and he froze. "But you're not wearing a wedding ring." "I've been helping my husband with his work since we were young, often working in the factory. Keeping my ring at home became a habit." When she looked at me and said this, I nodded in agreement, saying, "That's right. But I thought you might wear the ring today, so I was surprised too. It's our special ring, so I keep it safe at home." She blushed as she answered. In moments like these, I can't help but think she's adorable, no matter how much time passes or how old we get. We exchanged smiles, but John, still in denial, spoke up again. "You're lying. You two are just messing with me. We're not lying. She is precious to me and always will be." To prove my words, she took my hand with a happy expression. Seeing this, John let out a frustrated groan. "But I'm not a loser. I could make you happy too. John, you mentioned that you bought everything on loans, even your car and clothes. And not just any loans, but revolving credit. I don't think I could be happy with someone who uses revolving credit for big purchases." Emily said this apologetically but firmly. "What's wrong with revolving credit? I pay it off regularly, so there's no problem. Besides, you can buy anything you want and the monthly payments stay the same. It's a good deal." "No, it's not. It means your total debt never decreases, and you keep paying interest. The amount you repay each month might be fixed, but you end up paying more in the long run." John was focused on the immediate payments, not realizing the long-term implications. Revolving credit often has high interest rates and extended repayment periods. John seemed unaware of how much he was paying in fees or when he would be debt-free. "We have different views on money, John. You should find someone who shares your values." Rejected by her, John looked down in sorrow. Feeling sorry for him, I spoke up. "And Emily is already happy with me. Find someone else who doesn't have a partner. I'm sure you'll meet someone great." I meant to encourage him, but John seemed to take it the wrong way. He glared at me with resentment, tears welling up in his eyes. Then, he shouted, "Not only did you take my job, but now my Madonna too. Get lost," and fled the scene. With that, Emily, our classmates, and I were finally able to resume a calm reunion. We all spent an enjoyable evening together. A few days after the reunion, I contacted the branch where John worked, using the business card he had given me. As expected, it was revealed that he was treating his subordinates with a high-handed attitude daily. I immediately contacted HR to investigate the interpersonal relationships and work environment in his department. The investigation revealed that not only was John creating a negative atmosphere in the workplace, but he was also behaving arrogantly towards clients. While he was extremely polite to major corporate clients, he treated smaller or first-time clients with an overbearing attitude. The more we investigated, the more troubling reports we received. Despite feeling sad about it, I instructed HR to reassign John. I hoped he would return to his roots and rediscover a sincere work ethic. But the result was disappointing. He couldn't forget his former glory as a manager, clashing with his younger supervisor and remaining rude to clients. He eventually isolated himself and resigned a few months later. After leaving his job, he fell behind on loan payments, leading to the repossession of his house and car. He then disappeared, and no one knows what happened to him. As for me, I continued to lead a busy life with work and family. Thanks to the reunion, I reconnected with old friends. We're planning a big reunion when we all turn 60. When the day arrives, I plan to attend with my beloved wife, Emily. Until then, I continue to work hard, looking forward to the day we all meet again. When I started working, despite claims of gender equality, men were still often in dominant positions at the workplace. Women would either quit their jobs after getting married, or if they continued working, they would leave once they became pregnant. It was my colleague, Amy, who fought to change that environment. This woman could start a revolution. I began to watch Amy closely, thinking this way. Maybe that's when I started to care for Amy. My name is John. When I was a college student, I fulfilled my childhood dream of solo traveling. Since then, I enjoyed planning my next trip whenever I had the time, poring over maps. That's what led me to decide to work for a travel agency. Among the new graduates, there were 5 of us, 3 men, including myself, and 2 women. We were all from different parts of the country and grew closer as we faced various challenges together. Though there were times I felt lost and disheartened by the new world of work, the camaraderie with my fellow new hires gave me the strength to persevere. Among them, Amy was the most reliable, staying late into the night to discuss ideas. Amy was eager to tackle new challenges and was diligent and passionate. Seeing her dedication, I felt I couldn't let myself fall behind. However, our supervisor at the time, Alex, was prejudiced against women and treated capable women like Amy as nuisances. Women are just temporary workers until they get married. He would openly express such attitudes. He had no qualms about making hurtful remarks to women. Amy would always look frustrated, but she never lost her enthusiasm for her work. I could only imagine how awful it must have been for her. About 6 months into the job, when I started to find my rhythm as a working adult, I ran into Amy and another female colleague, Lisa, coming out of the bathroom. "Oh, sorry." I quickly stepped aside to avoid bumping into them and apologized. Noticing Lisa looked pale, I asked, "Hey Lisa, you don't look so well. Are you feeling sick?" She didn't respond, but Amy answered for her. "Thanks John, but she is fine." With that, they quickly walked away. A week later, Lisa informed Alex that she would be taking a day off from work. Must be nice for a newbie to take a day off. Alex said loudly enough for everyone to hear. "Hey Amy and John." He called us over, making my heart race. "Cover for Lisa while she's out." Amy said nothing, but I was worried about Lisa. "Is Lisa sick?" I asked. "She has a fever and isn't feeling well." "You know, this is the problem of women, they're so spoiled," Alex muttered as he went back to his work. As I noticed Amy glaring at his back, I asked her, "What's up? I wonder if Lisa's okay. How about we visit her on our way home today?" But she didn't respond to my question. Puzzled by her attitude, we returned to our tasks. Lisa didn't come to work the next day either. After the weekend, Lisa returned on Monday, but she still looked pale. "Are you okay?" "You still don't look well," I said. Lisa gave me a silent smile. Though she was trying to muster her strength, just as Amy had imagined, Alex's attitude towards Lisa remained very cold. "Hey, Lisa. You've got a backlog of work from all the days you missed. Get moving." "I'm sorry." Lisa apologized in a small voice. But he didn't stop there, continuing to make remarks that cornered her. I envy women because they can work just fine and get paid easily, while men have all the responsibilities attached to them. Amy, hearing this, was about to stand up to him, but Lisa somehow managed to hold her back. I was very concerned about Lisa, who continued to work despite looking miserable. Seeing her occasionally run off somewhere while holding some paper napkins to her mouth made even me, usually oblivious, realize that something was seriously wrong. For the next week, Alex's sarcastic remarks continued, and though Lisa looked distressed, she worked hard. Finally, after work on Friday, she came to Amy and me and said, "I just gave notice of my resignation. Last week, I found out at the hospital that I'm pregnant. But I'm having severe morning sickness and I don't think I can continue to work. I want to protect my baby. This is unfair. Why do you have to quit?" Amy, unable to hold back her tears, was furious, as if pleading to someone. "Don't cry for me anymore, Amy. You're the one who's going to change things, right? I'm looking forward to seeing that." "Lisa, I'm sorry I couldn't do anything for you." "No, Amy. I was able to keep going because you were there. Come visit me when the baby is born." "I will, I definitely will. I'll be there to see you too." "Congratulations. Good luck." Though Amy had tears in her eyes, I decided to see Lisa off with a cheerful attitude. She left the company with a clear smile, waving her hand energetically at us. "Are you okay?" I asked, peering into Amy's downcast face. "I will never forgive him. I'll climb higher than him and prove him wrong." Amy, with a fiery determination in her eyes, was set on proving herself and surpassing Alex through her work. She believed that women should not be seen as temporary workers and should be equal to men in the workplace. Amy declared to me that she wanted to create a work environment where people like Lisa wouldn't have to quit. After that, she worked so hard that I started worrying about her health. The more she excelled, the less pleased Alex seemed. He didn't like that Amy was getting more recognition than him. He even went as far as trying to pin his mistakes on her. I happened to witness one such incident. "Amy, this is your fault for not checking properly." "I did check thoroughly. Answering back to your boss like that shows you have no charm. Can't you be more feminine?" Alex looked at Amy with a smirk on his face. She bit her lip, enduring his comments without saying a word. "This is why it's a problem when women work. Why don't you have a baby soon? Maybe I can hook you up with someone." "That's..." Before she could say anything, I couldn't contain my anger any longer and burst out. "Hey, you're trying to blame your mistakes on your subordinates, but I'm telling you, you're the one who's lost your mind." I grabbed Alex by the collar, shouting, "John!" Amy grabbed my arm, trying to pull me off him. "Stop it, John." But her words didn't reach me, I was too enraged. I continued to hurl insults at Alex, forgetting myself. "Where's all that bravado now? Say something." He seemed slightly scared by my usually calm self now looking like a demon. But the loud commotion attracted other employees, who pulled me away from Alex before I could hit him. "John, you know what's going to happen to you, right?" I eventually was ordered to suspend work for 3 days for causing a commotion. All the while, Amy was calling to check in on me. I was grateful that she cared about me. I had been trying to support Amy's work, but I was finally convinced that this was a feeling of love for her. As instructed by the company, I showed up at HR the next day to find out that I had caused a commotion and that Alex's mistake was my fault. And I received a notice of transfer to a regional office. "What about Amy?" I asked. "Amy. She intervened, right?" "Oh, yes, that's right," I replied. Thinking back, I realized that from an outsider's perspective, it might have looked like I was threatening Alex and Amy was trying to stop me. But being blamed for his mistake felt absurd, and I let out a dry laugh. Still, I was relieved that Amy wasn't in any trouble. After finishing my conversation with HR, I returned to my desk and was immediately approached by her. "John." She looked like she was about to cry. "Can I have a moment of privacy, just you and me?" I suggested, leading her to the break room to avoid the eyes of our colleagues. "Hey, why are you about to cry?" "I did this on my own, so you don't need to feel responsible. But it's not fair that you're the only one paying the price because of me. Amy, you have important work to do here at the main office. I believe in you. This is nothing. But it's wrong. I'm going to talk to HR again. I grabbed her arm to stop her. She began to cry, unable to hold back her tears. Don't cry. It's not like you. Yeah. I'll be supporting you from the regional office to make sure we don't have another one like Lisa. I know you can do it. I patted her shoulder firmly. I just gave you a boost of energy. Hang in there, my dear Amy. I whispered to myself. Feeling anxious, I took up my new post. It was my 3rd year at the company. I'm John, transferred here from the main office. Nice to meet you all. I introduced myself nervously. It was a small branch with only a few people. As I unpacked at my new desk, the colleague next to me talked to me. I'm Mike. Nice to meet you. Feel free to ask me anything about work. Nice to meet you, too. Mike was bright and cheerful, speaking with energy. By the way, I heard you caused some trouble at the main office? He brought up the incident right away. Rather than having people gossip behind my back, I decided to be upfront about it. This place is pretty laid back, so take your time and relax, Mike said. I was caught off guard. What kind of people would be here? What if there was another unpleasant boss? But from the very first day, I felt surprisingly comfortable here. Even after my transfer, Amy and I kept in touch through calls and text messages. We shared our work experiences, celebrating successes and encouraging each other through failures. She continued to excel at the main office. Although she wasn't quite Alex's equal, she earned the trust and reliance of her colleagues by speaking her mind clearly. Her hard work was recognized, and 2 years after my transfer, she had been promoted to a supervisory position. Meanwhile, I was still doing leisurely work in the regional office, unchanged. Hearing about her promotion left me feeling unsettled. I had chosen this path to support her, but now I wondered if I should just quit and return to backpacking around the world. Even as I had these thoughts, I imagined Amy was busy working. John. John. Is that Amy's voice? I turned to see her standing there. Hey, John. Snap out of it. Amy said and gave me a quick tapping on my cheek with both hands, trying to wake me up. Hey, stop it, Amy. What are you doing here? Of course, it's work. I had a training session nearby and decided to drop by to see you. She smiled warmly at me. Though we had talked over video calls, this was the first time I'd seen her in person in 2 years. She had transformed into a career woman, while I hadn't changed at all. I felt embarrassed to be seen by her. Hey, it's almost lunchtime. How about to go to lunch together? Oh, it's already lunchtime? Sure, let's go. Want to try my favorite spot? Yes, I'd love to. It felt nostalgic to have this kind of conversation with Amy again. When we were at the main office, these talks were routine. I know I brought this on myself, but the difference between me and Amy got me down a little. I took her to an old-fashioned restaurant near the office. I like places like this. Do you come here often? Yeah, about 5 times a week. That's every day. Amy laughed cheerfully. I think I'll have today's special. I'll have the special too. We ordered the special set. When I was about to drink the glass of water the waiter brought, she suddenly started a serious conversation. I have something important to talk about. I looked at her over my glass. Marry me, John. I want to have a baby right away. I nearly choked on my water, coughing badly. John, are you okay? Concerned by my severe coughing, other customers looked over at me with worry. Hey Amy, that joke's a bit much. Were you ever such a jokester? I tried to laugh it off, but her serious expression didn't change. You're joking, right? Is this some kind of prank? Is there a camera hidden somewhere? Even after my second question, she continued to look at me seriously. Are you serious? Finally, after my third question, she spoke again. Of course, I'm serious. I wouldn't joke about this. I want to get married and have a baby. But we're not even dating. John, do you have a girlfriend or someone you have feelings for right now? I couldn't muster the courage to admit that I love her, so I just shook my head. No one? Then, Amy started to say, but our meals arrived. Wow, this looks delicious. Let's eat. Her serious demeanor changed to a cheerful one as she started eating, but I couldn't focus on the food. After lunch, we paid our bill and walked out of the restaurant. Then I asked her to continue what she had started to say earlier. What were you about to say earlier? Earlier? About what? Before our food arrived, you said then, and started to say something. Oh, I was going to say then consider marrying me. Wait, marriage usually starts with dating someone you like first, right? Then you propose and get married. John, do you really care about the order that much? I'm thinking that if I'm with someone I love, I'm fine with marrying him right away. Someone you love. Come on, John, are you really that insensitive or are you just trying to get me to say it? You're the only one who hasn't noticed, John. As she said this, I felt my face getting hotter and hotter. You mean, you're talking about me, right? Exactly. Amy said this without looking back as she walked ahead of me. What's the rush to get married and have a baby? I grabbed her shoulder and looked into her face, which she quickly covered with her hands, clearly embarrassed. Gosh, I'm embarrassed too, you know. She stopped there and raised her voice. I'm sorry. You seemed so calm. I said while showing a surprised expression on my face, and Amy spoke up. I think now is the chance. I'd become a supervisor and getting used to the job. If I can get married, get pregnant, keep working, taking maternity leave and then returning to work, I can show others it's possible. It will encourage others to follow. You mean that? Well, I would have wanted to be the first to say it. Maybe this kind of beginning isn't so bad. Then, our long-distance relationship with a plan to get married started. Not long after, an incident occurred at the headquarters. That annoying Alex tried to blame his mistakes on his subordinates again. Last time, I was the witness and caused a commotion, but this time, Michael, the department head, happened to witness it and it became a big problem. Alex tried to cover it up, but with Amy's support, he was swiftly transferred to a regional office. In exchange, I was able to return to the headquarters. Amy didn't waste any time after that. John, would you marry me? I was being proposed to by her. Again, you beat me to it. I looked down, feeling a bit disappointed since I had wanted to propose first. Tell me your answer. Yes, I will be with you for the rest of my life. She cheered and jumped into my arms. We got married a year after we started dating. Even after getting married, Amy worked even harder to ensure no one could say that her performance had declined because of it. I was thrilled to start my married life with the woman I had secretly loved. While I wanted to enjoy the newlywed phase for a long time, Amy had different plans. She wanted to get pregnant soon and show that she could still work, setting an example. During that time, many women were still leaving their jobs due to marriage or pregnancy. I understood her determination to change that. 6 months later, she got pregnant. Fortunately, she didn't have severe morning sickness and continued working as usual from the early stages of pregnancy. Now, without any annoying bosses, she is handling her work efficiently, even with her growing belly. She's planning to take maternity leave soon. Sometimes I am asked if I feel unworthy, as a husband, when my wife is in a higher position than I am. I always respond with, not really. Honestly, I'm tired of that question. To me, debates about whether men should be above women or vice versa are pointless. What matters is recognizing individual abilities. Thanks to Amy's example, other women have followed in her footsteps. This month, 2 women in my department announced their marriage and pregnancy. When someone leads the way, it changes from being something special to something normal. My department is becoming the kind of workplace Amy envisioned. I'm also planning to be the first man in the company to take paternity leave. Everything is new, but when someone starts, it paves the way for others to follow, making it no longer unprecedented. John, that report is due this morning. I see. Even though her due date is coming up, Amy is still full of energy and speaks as loudly as ever. I realized that I might never surpass her, not now, and probably not ever. And I hope our relationship would remain unchanged forever. Is this yours? She picked up something important to me in the library. That's how our relationship began. Just meeting at the same place made me happy. Soon, I found myself wanting to be with her every day. Despite being shy, I called her out. That day, at that place, I planned to tell her how I felt. But then, My name is Tom. I work for a toy company. As a kid, I dreamed of becoming a comic artist. The hero in my comics was always me. In my stories, I was always strong and cool. A hero who helped the weak, a figure of justice. That was my ideal self. In reality, I'm timid and uncool. I find it hard to talk to people, and making eye contact is very embarrassing. I'm the complete opposite. I hid behind my bangs and glasses, trying to make myself invisible. I avoided crowds and spent my time drawing comics. While drawing, I could feel like the cool hero of my own story. My parents wanted me to get a stable job instead of being a comic artist. Lacking the courage to oppose them, I decided to go to college as they wished. Since my parents didn't approve of my drawing, I went to the local library after school to study a bit and draw comics. At the library, I always sat in the same spot. A counter desk facing the window, the seat at the far end. One day, I rushed into the library and headed straight to that spot. But there was already a woman sitting there. She looked my age. I saw study guides on her desk, so she was also preparing for exams. Reluctantly, I sat at a different table. I spread out my study guides and my unfinished comic. I kept glancing at her, waiting for her to leave. Noticing my gaze, she glared at me and spoke. "Hey, do you need something from me?" "Oh, no, sorry." Her speaking to me made me nervous. "Aren't you the one who always sits here?" I was too embarrassed to respond and looked down, but she peered at my face. When I stayed silent, she pulled out a piece of paper from her bag. "Is this yours?" The paper had a familiar drawing. It was part of my comic. Embarrassed that she had seen it, I reached out to take it. But she quickly pulled it away. "What?" I thought she would mock me, laugh, and think I was weird. I wanted to run away. "Wow, did you draw this? It's amazing. It looks like a real comic, and the art is great." Her reaction was different from what I expected. "I found it under the desk and thought you might come back for it." She said this as she handed the paper to me. I was embarrassed by her confident and clear speech, and I kept my head down the whole time. My face was probably bright red. I silently wished she would just leave. "You're a student too, right? Drawing comics while studying, that's impressive." She smiled as she spoke to me. "Ah, well." I mumbled, feeling awkward and ashamed of myself. But she didn't seem to mind and said, "I can't figure out this problem. Do you know how to solve it?" "Oh, what's your name?" "I'm Sarah." "I'm Tom." "Okay, Tom, help me with this." Sarah moved to the seat next to mine. Well, you see, this is how." "I see. You're really smart." Sarah was always bright and unafraid, even from the first time we met. She treated me normally, despite my timid and awkward demeanor. Without planning it, we started studying together at the library after school. "Tom, you like this seat, don't you?" Sarah said as she let me have my favorite corner seat and sat next to me. "Oh, thank you." Sarah became the only person who made me feel at ease, someone I could spend time with after school and talk to. "Tom, do you have any dreams?" Dreams?" Sarah stopped studying and looked at me as she asked. "I want to start a company. My brother is in the hospital right now, and he's always playing mobile games. He often says he wishes there were games that didn't rely so much on in-game purchases. I want to make that dream come true for him." "Is your brother very ill?" "Yeah, kind of. He's been in and out of hospitals since we were kids." "So, what's your dream, Tom?" "My dream is to become a comic artist. I want to turn my characters into comics." "That's great. Let's work hard to achieve our dreams." She smiled warmly at me. Suddenly, she pulled out a hair tie from her bag, grabbed my bangs, and tied them up. "I've always been bothered by your bangs covering your eyes. Now, it's better, right?" Sarah looked at my tied up bangs and tried to hold back her laughter, shaking her shoulders. What? What's so funny? Your bangs look like a little horn. What's that animal called? She made a puzzled face, trying to remember the name of the animal. I drew a picture of the animal in my notebook and handed it to her. Do you mean a unicorn? Yes. A unicorn! Sarah exclaimed with such joy that her voice echoed through the library. People around us started to look over, wondering what the commotion was about. Sarah, your voice is too loud. Sorry. Hey, can I keep this drawing? She looked at the unicorn drawing with delight. While we moderately kept up with our exam studies, we spent time sharing dreams and critiquing the comics I drew. She was the only peer with whom I could open up to. Spending time with her, I found myself feeling emotions I had never experienced before. I enjoyed being with her and felt comfortable around her. I started looking forward to seeing her the next day and the day after that. I began to feel that way. Maybe this is what love feels like. I realized this when she didn't show up at the library. We hadn't exchanged contact information or made any plans to meet, we just happened to sit at our usual seats and study. Even though I was too shy to speak to her, I started wanting to take our relationship beyond just meeting there. Hey, no matter what our results are, let's meet here to share them, okay? Yeah, that sounds good. I had decided to confess my feelings that day. On the day of our exam results, I was accepted into my first choice college. And I headed to the library to meet her with the intention of confessing for the first time. I arrived 30 minutes early, my heart pounding with excitement and nervousness. I was thrilled about getting accepted and anxious about what her response might be. I didn't imagine it would go perfectly. I was also worried that our friendship might end, but I felt I had to tell Sarah how I felt. However, she didn't show up even after the meeting time passed. After 30 minutes, then an hour, I realized this might be her answer. And I left the library and went home. Without exchanging contact information, attempting a confession had been a mistake. I buried my feelings for Sarah deep in my heart and started my college life. I knew I needed to change, so I tried to be more social with my classmates. Despite my efforts, my personality didn't change much, and I still struggled with social interactions. I continued drawing comics and entered competitions held by magazines multiple times, but I never won or even received feedback. In my third year of college, I made one last attempt, hoping to get a break. If this didn't work out, I would give up and start job hunting. That was my decision. Even though I submitted my best work, it didn't catch anyone's attention. I decided it was time to move on and got rid of all my drawings, determined to start anew. One day, I attended a job fair and listened to a presentation by a toy company. In their development department, I might be able to create characters and see them become products. Hoping to see the characters I created on store shelves as products, I decided to apply to several toy companies. Luckily, I received an offer from one of the companies I had listened to, and I became a working adult. Despite hoping for a position in the product development department, I was assigned to sales. I wasn't good at talking to people or making eye contact, so I doubted I could handle sales. I was filled with anxiety from the first day. Even though I wanted to run away, I couldn't quit for such a childish reason. My parents were thrilled that I had landed a regular job, given my background in drawing comics. I couldn't disappoint them by quitting. I learned the job from senior employees and visited clients. I was bad at talking and not good at conversations. I couldn't even come up with clever remarks. Naturally, my sales performance was poor, and my boss constantly scolded me. However, harboring hopes of eventually transferring to a different department, I tried my best. After a year, new employees joined under me. I could sense my boss's frustration as they easily outperformed me. Once again, the same person has the worst performance this month. Do you understand, Tom? My boss shouted my name in front of everyone. All I could do was apologize. Apologizing didn't change his mood. I knew it was my fault for not performing well. But every day, my boss would nag and vent his anger on me. Everyone, Tom is a bad example of a salesperson. Don't follow his lead. He had it in for me because of my poor performance. Even though he said that, I couldn't prove him wrong through my work. Every day was filled with reprimands and apologies. I didn't take this job to do this. I wanted to create my own characters. While apologizing, I remembered the dream I shared with Sarah. Back then, I had clearly told her I wanted to be a comic artist. What would she say if she saw me now? While apologizing, I thought about my days with Sarah. Thanks to her, I was slowly able to express my feelings. But now, I was just like I was before meeting her. I wanted to break out of my shell. Determined, I tried harder to be clever and converse with people. The more I tried, the more I felt something inside me breaking, and I was mentally exhausted more than physically. One day, I absent-mindedly drew in the margins of some documents. Tired of not being myself, my hand moved on its own. My boss happened to see it. "Hey, Tom. Slacking off and doodling during work, huh? What's this?" He snatched the paper from me and tried to show it to others, intending to make me a laughingstock. "Please stop," I said lightly. My voice didn't reach him, who was amused by showing my drawing to everyone. A guy who can't even handle sales properly is spending his time on childish drawings. What a privilege. At that moment, I remembered the first time Sarah complimented my drawing. She said my drawing was good. Seeing my boss trying to ridicule it felt like he was tarnishing my memories with Sarah. So I forcefully grabbed the paper from his hand and shouted, "You have no right to insult this drawing." My loud voice made him flinch for a moment, but he quickly glared at me. "You think you can?" He started, but I cut him off by handing him the resignation letter I always carried. "I quit," I said, leaving without looking back. After storming out of the office, my legs were shaking. Though I had planned to leave eventually, I couldn't believe I had stood up to my boss. But I also felt a sense of relief. As I got closer to home, I began to worry about how to tell my parents. I didn't have another job lined up. What would I do next? These thoughts made my legs tremble again. Unable to head home, I sat on a bench in a nearby park and opened my phone. Since carrying my resignation letter, I had been checking job sites. I thought about pursuing the path of a comic artist again. I considered working as an assistant and learning more about making comics. But I no longer had the energy or courage to continue chasing that dream. So I looked at job sites, wondering what I could do. I hated not doing well and getting scolded by my boss. I worried that quitting for such reasons would be running away, but I ended up leaving anyway. Despite my poor social skills, I managed to stick with the sales job for 3 years. I felt I should be proud of myself. But what would Sarah think if she saw me now? Would she encourage me? Or would she be disappointed by my unchanged self? As I pondered this, I noticed a familiar drawing on a job site. It was the unicorn I had drawn for Sarah. Intrigued, I checked the job details. It was a company developing mobile game apps. At that moment, I remembered Sarah's dream. She wanted to start a company for her brother's dream. On the day I quit my job, I saw the unicorn drawing and felt it was fate, so I hurriedly applied to the company. The next day, I received a reply to my application. The email contained the date and location of the interview. I prepared my resume and headed to the specified location. It was a small apartment. When I knocked on the door, a man answered. "My name is Tom. I have an interview scheduled today. We've been expecting you. Please come in." The man guided me into the room. "Please wait a moment." After a few minutes, the man returned with a woman. He left the room, leaving me alone with her, and she started speaking. "Tom, I'm the CEO, Sarah." Although I had somewhat expected it, I still gaped at the sight of her introducing herself as the CEO. "I'm glad you recognized it. I put the drawing on the job site as a message for you, Tom. I'm happy you got it." Sarah smiled as she spoke, unfazed by my astonished expression. "And that man who showed you in is my brother, John. Are you listening?" "Yes, I'm listening," I replied, looking at her with a mix of confusion and surprise. "Are you surprised I'm the CEO? I fulfilled my dream. It seems like you haven't achieved yours yet, though." She seemed to be pleased about my not becoming a comic artist. I never had the talent to be a comic artist anyway. "Oh, don't misunderstand me. I'm not laughing at your unfulfilled dream, I'm relieved. If you were a famous comic artist, you wouldn't be able to use your talents for us, So, let's develop exciting apps together. We need you. I've been waiting for you to find me. What? But you didn't show up at the library that day. I went to the library that day. I arrived an hour early, but then I got a call that my brother's condition had suddenly worsened. He pulled through. But by the time I realized it, more than 3 hours had passed. When I returned to the library, you were already gone. So if I had waited longer, we could have met that day. I felt disheartened by my quick decision to leave. If I had waited longer that day, I might not have had to take such a roundabout path. But you noticed my message, Tom. So, I want you to work with us here. Hearing her words filled me with an indescribable sense of strength. Then, let's meet at the library again, one more time. What? At the library? I'll give you my answer then. I said, leaving the room. On the appointed day, I arrived at the library more than 30 minutes early. I was anxious about whether Sarah would show up today. However, she was already sitting in our usual spot. Were you here an hour early again? Yes, I was sitting here that day too. So, can you tell me now? Her words made my heart race. I had decided to say what I couldn't that day. Sarah, I like you. You didn't laugh at my drawings, you praised them. Talking to you made me feel like a different person. My feelings haven't changed since that day. When I said that, she looked down. Then she beckoned me closer, pointing at something. Look here. I left a message that day too. I looked at the desk she pointed to. There, faintly, were the words Love Tom carved into the desk. Do you think I'll get in trouble if they find out? She smiled playfully. Is this? I should have said it sooner. It looks like we both had feelings for each other. Saying it out loud is kind of embarrassing, though. And so, I decided to join her company. Even though it was just Sarah and her brother John, it was still a company. I then turned the unicorn drawing I gave to Sarah into a cute character for a game where you could raise it as a pet. I created the characters, and John programmed them into the game. The company was just starting out, and the salary was low. But the excitement of seeing my characters come to life in a game was more rewarding. Besides, with Sarah by my side, I felt like I could achieve more than I ever had